Well, this table has completely had it, but I reckon we can bring it back to life with some boards from an old pallet. Let's go. Right, so we've got some old pallet boards here, and this is the old table that we got from B&M, which is snapped here. I'm going to use some JB Weld to glue that back on there, give it a spray paint with some black matte paint. That stand will be nice. And then for this horrible MDF top, we're going to use these boards. So we're going to cut a circle out of these, stick these together with some dowel, sand it down, give it a dye, and then hopefully we'll have a nice rustic table. So let's get cracking. Right then, so now I've got all these cut, I'm going to whack them on the sander just to make them look a bit better. Right, so now all the sanding's done, I'm going to lay all these boards out. I'm going to use the top of the old table and put it on there so I can get the perfect circle. And then over that, I'm going to figure out where to drill my holes for my dowels. And I'm going to use this little jig here, which I've never used before. In fact, I've never done any of this before, but it's all good fun. So that's the next step. Let's get cracking. So now that's done, all I need to do now is use this jig to simply pop it on there, line it up, screw this bit down, and then drill a hole in both sides. I need to do that however many times I need to do that. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do next. Right, so I've got the last board here, put some dowels in. Let's do a dry fit just to see if it does fit. There we go, perfect. To be totally honest, I've never used this before, and I don't think I've used it correctly, but if you know how to use it, give us a shout down in the comments. But here we go. It kind of fits together now, so I'm going to add some glue in between all these dowels, get it clamped together, and then we'll move on to the next step. Right, so there we go. That is all glued up. Put the dowels in. I haven't got any clamps big enough, but that will be fine overnight. And then all we've got to do is cut it out, mend the legs, give this a nice sand dye it with some wood dye, and then it'll be ready to assemble. So yeah, we'll crack on with that tomorrow. Right, so it's the next day and this is totally glued together now. Is all I've done off camera is used a bit of sawdust and wood glue just to fill in some of these gaps here. So because it's a bit uneven now, is all we've got to do is just use this planer to make this a bit flatter. So yeah, that's the next step. Let's get cracking. Right, that side's done, so we've just got to do the other side now. All right, so now we've done all the planing, we're just going to give it a bit of a sand with an orbital sander to make it just a little bit smoother, but we don't want to make it too smooth because we want it to look rustic as well. Right, there we go. That is a lot smoother. Nice, that is looking really nice. Right, okay. So that is done. And before I forget, take those off. We need to start mending the legs. Saying that, it's only just this bit here. I'm going to use a bit of something called JB Weld, which is like a 2-part epoxy. So we'll mix those together. We'll put a bit on there, leave that to dry, and then we'll just give it a bit of a spray with some spray paint. And yeah, that will be the legs done. So let's crack on and do that now. When you've mixed it all together, it will look a little bit like that, like a grey colour. It's basically like a steel 2-part epoxy resin, but it's brilliant stuff. Mending anything metal, it's like a weld, and I can't weld, so this is the next best step. So not the neatest job, but when it's all dry, I can sand that down and spray it. Right then, so that bit's done. I'm just going to leave that for about 24 hours just so that can really kick and set. And then we'll sand that down and make it a bit neater and then spray it up. But yeah, we're going to leave that to the side, so we'll pop that down here. Right, so the next step is we're going to use the bandsaw to cut out the circle, and we've got to try and stick to the outside of that line there, because if we do it on the inside, then the measurements are going to be wrong. So yeah, so we're going to get the majority of it off, and then we can use a sander just to go the rest of the way, but you don't want to go too far. It's just going to muck up the cut. So let's crack on with that. Right, there we go. Whoops, got a nice circle there. So we're just going to take it back to the workbench. Right, so now we've got this off the bandsaw, we're going to whack it on the template of the old table. So we'll get that lined up, and then we're going to use this router with a flush trim bit in there. You can see that, and that will give us a nice clean edge around there. So yeah, we're going to get that set up next. Right, so there we go. So that is nice and flush around the side now. So what we're going to do now, we're going to swap this bit over for a round over bit, which will basically make this round and a little bit smoother at the edges. So that's the next step. Right, so there we go, just give that a little bit of a sand down. In fact, let's get sandpaper there. So there we go, you can see that nice smooth edge on there. Give it a bit more of a sanding, and then we will get on with dyeing the wood. And we're going to use a nice antique pine for this, which will give it a nice rustic look. Just going to get this place tidied up, and then we're going to start using our dye. Right, so there we go, all tidied up and all sanded down. So now we're just going to use a damp cloth and get most of this sawdust off of this, and then we'll get cracking with our dye. Yeah, just a bit of water on here. And then give it a bit of a rub down, just get all the main bits of sawdust off of it. I think that will probably do. Right, and then we're going to get our dye in. Right, best to put some gloves on as well, because this stuff stains. Oh, this stuff stinks. I should probably be wearing a mask. That's better. There we go, that bit, oh, that smells. Oh. Right, that is done. So I'm going to leave that to defume, and then we're going to crack on with the legs and get them sorted next. Oh. Right, I'm back. So we're just going to, this glue's dried here, so we're going to make it look a little bit neater with the Dremel. Just get that polished up, and then we can spray it with some matte paint. Right, next step, that's all done. So I'm just going to use some Easy Spray matte black paint just to finish that off. There we go. So that's all sprayed up, so we're going to put that aside to dry. And then, just like in Blue PT, is one I made earlier. So that is near enough dry now. And all we're going to do is use some of this wax polish just to give it a bit more of a shine on there. Nearly finished. There we go, that is pretty much done. You can sort of see the shine on that. So now we're going to connect the top to the bottom. Let's hope it fits. We are in. So there we go, that's what it's going to look like. Let's just get these 3 little screws back in underneath. We'll give it a polish and then take it in. Well, there we go. There's our rustic pallet board top coffee table. I am pretty pleased with that, the way that it came out. So yeah, last thing to do is to just take it inside, see what it looks like. So there we go guys, there's my pallet wood top coffee table. Looks a lot better than the old B&M one that was falling apart. So yeah, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up and a subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.